Balak mo bang sukuan ng business law and taxation?
Hindi po.
Hindi po.
Hindi po.
Hindi po.
Hindi po.
Never.
Hindi po.
Hindi po.
Hindi mo naman siya kailangan subukan para malaman kung masama ba siya talaga.
Ang dami ng nasirang buhay dahil dun.
Marami pa akong pangarap sa buhay na gusto ko to pa rin lahat. Sa akin, wala talagang magandang maidudulot yun.
It's easy to say no pag alam mong masama.
Pag ginawa mo yun, hindi lang naman yung sarili mo yung sinasaktan mo eh. Hindi pati yung pamilya mo.
Protektahan nila yung sarili nila, sila mismo lumayo dun sa tukso.
Huwag.
Wag. Wag.
Huwag.
Wag.
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 Huwag mong subukan.
Huwag mong subukan. Masisira ang buhay mo at sa huli ang bayan mo.
Whoop. So ayun na guys, actually nandito ako sa bahay ng kaklase ko ngayon sa Barangay Rosario at balita ko gumagawa daw sila ng reporting eh. Check nga natin kung anong ginagawa nila. Uy, tao po. So andito na sila guys, gumagawa na po sila oh. Uy! Ano yan? Chapter 3? Ayos yan ah. Pwede nga pa-explain na to.
Uy, alam nyo ba, magpa-finals na. Tara, review tayo about business law and taxation.
Ay, na naman. Sige, sige.
O, punta tayo sa... Asan na yun? Chapter 3, yung other percentage taxes. May idea ba kayo ano yung percentage tax?
Ako meron. Alam niyo ba na ang other percentage tax ay isang uri ng buwis na pinapataw sa isang individual o negosyo na nagbebenta ng produkto at serbisyo na may taunang kita na hindi lumalampas 3 milyong piso at hindi registered sa VAT. Unlike income tax, ang percentage tax ay hindi napapasailalim sa withholding tax.
Okay, ganun pala yun. Kaya pala yung gross receipts na pakinggan nyo na ba yun?
Ano ba yun?
Bali yung gross receipts kasi, yun yung sales of services. Tapos, basically yun yung revenue ng company na walang deduction or exclusion, including yung any deduction for withholding tax. So, yung layunin kasi nun, kaya wala siyang deductions is para mapanatili yung reliability. Kumbaga, magkaroon ka ng assurance dun sa pinagmula ng state revenue. So, yung deductions daw kasi, nagpapakomplika siya nito nung tax system. Tsaka, nalilesen niya yung pagkolekta ng buwis.
Ganun pala yun. So, alam nila rin ba yung meaning ng liability for 3% percentage tax?
Oh.
Doon naman, parang sinasabi doon na yung 3% tax, yun yung mga taong hindi registered dahil yung mga annual sales nila hindi nag-i-exceed within 3 million pesos. Kaya ngayon, in-adjust ito ng 1% simula noong July 2020 hanggang June 2023.
So, alam niyo rin ba kung sa ano ang sukatan or measurement ng percentage tax?
Hindi nga pre.
Kasi parang nabasa ko dito yun eh. Meron dito sa may part na to. Ang sabi dito na, ang percentage tax, sinusukat daw yun depende sa or sa total na amount na nakolektang receipts or sales at hindi yun nakabase sa kung gaano karami na manufacture or na-produce na produkto.
Ganun pala yun.
Yung percentage tax pala, akala ko baka parang malaking kumpanya rin pala siya. Pero, meron pa ng small business enterprises, may domestic carriers and keepers of garage, meron din international carriers, tapos yung mga franchise na holder, yung grantees, ganun. Tapos kahit mismo yung nasa ibang bansa na nagbabayad ng communication service, taxable din pala. At yung bangko, akala natin hindi taxable pero taxable. Saka yung mga non-bank financial intermediaries. Tapos sila insurance, tapos yung proprietors, thesis, saka yung nanalo ng mga prices dun sa horse race, saka yung highlight, saka yung seller ng mga o yung mga transfer ng shares to stocks. Kasama pala din. Yung ko lang nalaman.
Eh, yung tax treatment of shifted percentage tax, alam niyo yun?
Hindi.
Ito nga yun. Percentage tax, being an indirect tax, is shifted by the service provider to the service recipient. Number 1, if the service recipient is a taxpayer engaged in trade, business calling, or profession, the shifted percentage tax on purchase made in the course of trade or business must be treated as part of the cost of purchases or expenses in the books of accounts or records.
And for the next topic, we have the tax on small business enterprises. And the example of it are person exempt from VAT. Did you know that the persons exempt from VAT, these are the person who has a gross annual sales on their businesses. If their gross annual sales is not exceeding in 3 million pesos, they will be considered as a non-VAT registered person. These are the examples of the persons exempt from VAT. Beauty shops, barber shops, and some more SME store. Or if you're a professional like doctors, engineer, you are subject to pay the percentage tax equivalent to 3% of their gross quarterly sales or receipts. And for the next topic, we have the meaning of gross annual sales and receipts. This tells you how much money you incur before you compute all the deductions on your business. And the tax is paid quarterly and not for 1 year or 12 months.
Para gusto ko bumili ng bike. Saan ka may bike?
One eternity later.
Ako! Ako!
Hey, pare ka
Uy,
pala.
pre!
Ano, kunin mo na ba yung bike?
Tignan ko na! Tara, tignan natin.
Ayun ba? Bike na yun.
Kasi kulong ko na. Paano to?
Ayun, so yung ba sinabi ko sa'yo, pre? Wala akong lugi dyan. Yung sa lahat.
Okay?
Saddle ka pa, di ba?
Ito pre, akin. Kinain muna. Okay.
Uy, pare ah. Sige, hindi mo na.
Okay.
Ano? Pwede pa.
Okay.
Raindrops are falling on my head, and just like the guy whose feet are too big for his bed, nothing seems to fit. Those raindrops are falling on my head, they keep falling. So I just did me some.
Dito ka ako. Sarap ko naman yung break.
So ayun, gagala na naman tayo. Pero hindi pwedeng gumala ng walang baong trivia na maaaring magamit sa araw-araw. Lalo pa parating na yung finals examination namin. So pupunta kaming Dasol, Pangasinan. And mag-island hopping din kami sa Colibra Island. Naalala ko lang yung lesson namin sa business law and taxation, which is yung other percentage taxes. Sa other percentage taxes kasi, diniscuss dun yung mga transport by land. Dahil na itong mga bus tsaka jeep. So, ayun.
So, letter C, tax on carriers and keepers of garages. Ano nga ba yung common carriers? Common carriers, yun yung mga business na nagtatransport ng personal properties or goods and passengers from one place to another, either by land, water, or air, offered to public for a fee. So take note na not all are subject to common carriers tax. From the tax code section 117, which is yung percentage tax on domestic carriers and keepers of garages. So keep in mind na yung common carriers tax section 117 applies only to domestic carriers which transport passengers by land. So, pasok dito yung mga cars for rent or hire driven by the lessee, which is ayan nga yung nirent naming van papuntang Pangasinan. Transportation contractors, including person who transport passengers for hire, and other domestic carriers by land for the transport of passengers. And lastly, yung keepers of garages. Ano nga ba yung keepers of garages? For example, meron akong bakanting lupa. Then, merong bus company sa tapat ko. And yung bus company na yun, hindi nakasya yung mga bus niya sa garahe niya. At since may free space nga ako, pwede ko yung parentahan sa kanya. So, ang tawag sa akin ay keepers of garages. So, ang rates and basis of tax naman ng common carriers, one shall pay a tax equivalent to 3% of their quarterly gross receipts. So, not subject to tax naman ay yung mga owners of bangkas and owners of animal-drawn two-wheeled vehicles. So, balikan lang natin kanina yung Common Carriers Tax Section 117 na nag-a-apply lang daw sa domestic carriers which transport passengers by land. So, yung not subject to tax nun ay yung mga domestic carriers by land, air, or water na nagtatransport ng goods and cargoes. So, to prevent tax avoidance, the tax code provides that in computing the percentage tax, this amount shall be considered the minimum quarterly gross receipts in each case. For jeepneys for hire, Manila and other cities, 2,400, and for provincial, 1,200. For public utility bus, not exceeding 30 passengers, 3,600, exceeding 30 but not exceeding 50 passengers, 6,000, exceeding 50 passengers, 7,200. Sa taxis naman, Manila and other cities, 3,600, for provincial, 2,400. Car for hire with chauffeur, 3,000, car for hire without chauffeur, 1,800. Uy, teka, ano ba yung chauffeur na naman na yan? Yung chauffeur, ibig sabihin yan ay yung mga person na in-employ to drive people in a car. Proceed na tayo sa Section 118, Percentage Tax on International Carriers. So, etong Section 118, Percentage Tax on International Carriers, it is all about yung goods and cargoes, not passengers, and ito yung mga tinatransport from Philippines to another country. So basically, ito yung mga international carriers that pertains to foreign international air and shipping carriers doing business in the Philippines. So ito yung mga resident foreign corporations. So ito naman yung mga subject to percentage tax on international carriers. Ito ay yung mga international air carriers and yung international shipping carriers doing business in the Philippines. And they will both transport cargo from the Philippines to another country and shall pay tax equivalent to 3% for their quarterly gross receipts. Good morning, Philippines! Today is May 27, 2023, and I am Julia Montoya, your anchor for PLP News. Our headlines for today is about other percentage taxes, particularly franchise tax and overseas communication tax. Letter D, tax on franchises. According to the book, franchise is a special privilege or right conferred on an individual or corporation by the state through the legislature and which, therefore, does not belong to the citizens of the country, generally as a matter of a common right. As a privilege, the exercise of a franchise is subject to such conditions, regulations, and restrictions as the government may deem necessary to impose for public interest. Simply, franchise is granted to an individual or businesses by the government through a legislative grant. Now let's proceed to the rates and basis of the tax. Franchise tax is based on the annual gross receipts derived by the franchise grantees. Tax on Franchises Section 119 discusses that any provision of general or special law to the contrary notwithstanding, there shall be levied, assessed, and collected from the following. First, it should be a radio or television broadcasting company that its annual gross receipts of the preceding year do not exceed on 10 million, then it will be taxed 3%. Second requirement to fall under this section is that it should be a gas and water utilities and it will be taxed 2%. For radio or television broadcasting companies, if its annual gross receipts exceeded to 10 million, then it will fall under VAT. As we can recall, there are two kinds of registering under VAT, which is the mandatory and the optional. For mandatory, you will be VATable if your gross receipts exceeded to 3 million, and while for the radio or television broadcasting company exceeded to 10 million. The optional to register under VAT, if you are not a radio or television broadcasting company and does not exceed to the 3 million threshold, then you are not required to register. But if decided to register, then you will be VATable, and it can be revoked after 3 years if your gross receipts will not exceed to the threshold of 3 million. The other optional registering under VAT for the radio or television broadcasting company is that if your gross receipts of the preceding year did not exceed to 10 million and yet you opted to register, then you will be VATable and it cannot be revoked. For filing of returns and payment of tax, the grantee shall file the return with and pay the tax due thereon to the commissioner or his duly authorized representative, in accordance with the provision of Section 128 of this Code, and the return shall be subject to audit by the Bureau of Internal Revenue, any provision of any existing law to the contrary notwithstanding. Other percentage taxes, letter E, Overseas Communications Tax. Its basis is imposed on the amount paid. Persons liable, a tax of 10% on the amount paid for such services shall be charged for each international dispatch, message, or conversation sent from the Philippines via telephone, telegraph, telewriter exchange, wireless, or other communication equipment service. The person paying for the services must pay the tax imposed by this section, and they must pay it to the person providing the services, who is obligated to collect and pay the tax within 20 days of the end of each quarter. Tax imposed by this section shall not apply to the government, which is the amount paid for messages transmitted by the government of the Republic of the Philippines or any of its political subdivisions or instrumentalities. Amounts paid for messages transmitted by the diplomatic services and any embassy and consular offices of foreign government. International organizations, amounts paid for messages sent by a public international organization or one of its Philippine-based agencies that benefits from advantages, exemptions, or immunity that the Philippine government has agreed to recognize under a treaty. Lastly is a news services, amounts paid for messages sent by a newspaper, press association, radio or television newspaper, broadcasting agency, news sticker service to another newspaper, or to a legitimate correspondent, where the messages are solely about gathering news for a disseminating news through the public press, radio or television broadcasting, or a news sticker service. And that's all our news for today. Again, I am Julie Montoya, your anchor for PLP News. Good day, Philippines.
Rick Sorkin? Rick Sorkin? Rick Sorkin? Excuse me, Mr. Sorkin. You are 5 minutes late. Is there a reason why I should let you in?
I'm just trying to do this stuff today. I didn't really know if you would let me in or not.
Mr. Inspector will be right with you. What? Can I get you anything? A coffee or a bottle of water? What? Can I help you?
How the hell did you know they were the police?
I already know going into their school. The cops are taken out of the hotel. The man dresses as a bellhop, and the other man in a suit, and it is exactly the same.
You know.
What? I'd like to read.
And why do you ask what time it was?
Well, show them all. And another thing, what kind of drug dealers ask cops what time is it when you have a briefcase full of pot, right?
We should hire you. Jesus, I give you the 25 grand as a sign-in bonus.
I'll take it.
Unfortunately, you did not went to Harvard Law School. And not only that, you did not went to any law school at all.
What if I told you that I consume knowledge no one ever met, and I've actually passed the bar?
I'd say you're full of crap.
It's the long chance for business taxation, right? Give me something.
Maybe something. Read the names of tax and banks and non-bank financial intermediaries. There should be a tax in the grocery system right from sources within the
These are all bonds, non-bonds,
So, cut muna, time out muna sa yung scene, no? I forgot to mention yung very vital na kailangan nyo maintindihan about the sa rate and basis tax, no? So, kapag interest, commissions, and discounts from lending activities, dalawa yung singil doon, dalawa yung percentage na susundin mo doon. Pag yung maturity period mo is less than 5 years, ang sisingilin sa'yo is 5%. Okay? Then, kapag maturity period mo is lagpas naman ng 5 years and above, 1% lang siya. And then, kapag dividends naman, dividends, equity shares, and net income of subsidiaries, 0%. According to the book. No? So, you can open your book sa page 293, then you can read it below. Tapos, pag royalties, rentals of property, real or personal property, profits from exchange, and all other items treated as gross income, 7% yun. Then, pag net trading gains, 7% din. So, yun lang. Balik na ulit kayo sa scene.
Well, I learned it when I studied for the bar.
Okay, shut. Open this file.
I'm going to put a proper rules and predetermination.
If there is predetermination, the majority period shall be reckoned to end as of the date of predetermination for purposes of classifying the transactions and applying the correct rate of tax.
Any adjustment in tax due caused by predeterminations of existing agreements shall be perfected as a separate item in which the predetermination takes place.
Well, that's impressive, but the whole thing of hope.
Playing my sweeper. Sorry if you need to beat me, you're gonna have to do it with something else.
Step aside. I'm emailing the firm that we found our next associate.
What you're seeing right now is a person suffering from their sickness. Hi, brother. What would happen if you have a health problem and you have nothing but a coin in your pocket? Would you get a health or financial support from a people in your surroundings who work hard for themselves too? What we're going to be tackling right now is about the tax on life insurance companies and agents of foreign insurance companies. Let us know first, what is insurance? Insurance is a means of protection from financial loss in which, in exchange for a fee, a party agrees to compensate another party in an event of a certain loss, damage, or injury. It is a form of risk management primarily used to hedge against the risk of a contingent or uncertain loss. To put it in simple words, insurance is a legal agreement between two parties, the insurer and the insured, also known as insurance coverage or insurance policy. The insurer provides financial coverage for the losses of the insured that he or she may bear under certain circumstances. The gross amount that was collected by the insurer is called premiums. And that is where the rate and basis of tax came in. So basically, here in our article that is showing under section 123, it says here that there shall be collected from every person, company or corporation doing life insurance business of any sort in the Philippines a tax of 2% of the total premium collected. Just want to add up, to inform you all, there is also an exemptions to tax on life insurance premiums. These are purely cooperative companies or associations. So basically what it means is that these are the companies that collect or gathered financial among their subs. It is for their own protection and not for profit. Because some insurance company do gains profit as well, in a way that the collected money they reinvest it to those generating profit company, and the purpose of it is to gain or increase the invested amount via receiving interest. I just want to add up as well about the life insurance that came from or being given outside the country or foreign country that is not authorized to transact business here in the Philippines. Originally the tax is 2%, but then again in this case the tax is gonna be doubled from 2% to 4% as it was imposed in section 123. Lastly is that when we are now referring to the property that was insured by the foreign insurance, the tax is gonna be 5%. To inform you all, the life insurance is not the only insurance that we have. There is also a health insurance and an auto insurance. Okay, on this slide, we're now going to be discussing the certain category where collection of tax is not applied. First is premiums refunded within 6 months. It usually happens when there is a rejection on the payment due to some reason. The second is premiums paid upon reissuance by a company that has already paid the tax. The purpose of this is to avoid or prevent the double taxation. Number 3 is premium collected or received by any branch of a domestic corporations, firms, or association doing business outside the Philippines on the account of any life insurance of the insured who is non-resident. To put it on a simple word, these are the business which is not established here in the Philippines but then owned by domestic corporations, firms, or association. Number 4 is premium collected or received on the account of any reinsurance if the insured of a personal insurance resides outside the Philippines and the tax on such premium is imposed by the foreign country where the original insurance has been issued or perfected. Number 5 is portion of premium collected or received in excess of the amounts necessary to insure the lives of variable contract owners. Okay guys, since we already tackled the premium exempt from tax, let us now go with the taxability of the various business activities of life insurance companies. Basically guys, to put it all in simple words, life insurance do gain profit on two different things. As mentioned on a previous topic that was discussed, the life insurance thus gains revenue from the collected amount of premiums from the policyholder who agreed to provide money or any substitute to money in return of protection or reimbursements against losses. This is called premium income. But then again, to inform you all, life insurance also generates income from interests, dividends, capital gains, and rental income. It is called an investment income. So the difference between these two income, premium income is subject to tax on a life insurance, which is 2%. On the other hand, investment income is considered as an income from service, which is subject to VAT under Section 108. Last but not the least is the taxability of non-life insurance companies for business tax. On this type of insurance, all collected money or all collected premiums is not subject to life insurance tax, but hence it is subject to VAT tax.
Magpa-finance na pala. Meron kasi requirement sa pag-state. Mga business tax ba yun? Okay lang ba? Tawa mo. Hindi mo sa kalaman eh. Sige na lang ang plan. Sige. Yan. Hindi na lang. Hindi na lang. Tutuwa mo. Okay. Ito yung amusement taxes. Ano ba yung kinds of amusement taxes?
Meron tax on gross receipt. Sinasabi dito na ang tax gross receipt ay nakinuha sa mga proprietors, leases, and operators of cockpits, cabarets, day and night clubs, regardless sa admission charges. Yung tax on winnings naman, sinasabi dito na ang tax on winnings ay kinukuha sa mga winners, in addition din sa lahat ng foreign tourists ay eligible for 50% discount upon proper identification.
Yun pala yun. Meron pa dito yung liability of proprietor, lessee, or operator of amusement place.
Sinasabi naman dyan na yung owner ng amusement place is responsible for paying the amusement tax. Pero hindi sa lahat ng pagkakataon. If yung owner or proprietor ng racetrack is not liable for paying tax, if yung may ibang tao na gumagamit ng racetrack sa mga araw na prohibited yung owner, ang magiging liable in paying tax ay ang leases or operators.
Okay. Di, yung amusement taxes, paano ba yung rates nun tsaka basis?
Meron din siyang tax on gross receipts. The amusement tax is equivalent to 18% of gross receipts for cockpits, cabarets, day and night clubs, boxing exhibition, 50% naman of gross receipt for professional basketball games, and 30% of gross receipt for high alay and racetracks. Sa tax on winnings naman, sinasabi dito na yung 10% of the winnings base amount paid to the winner after deducting cost of winnings. Sa case ng lowball and trifecta bets is 10% of the price, and sa case naman ng owners of winning racehorses, the tax is 10% of the price.
Okay. Ano ba talaga yung meaning ng cabinet and billions? Yung mga characteristics na cabinet, like winning class, isa cases where gambling is gonna be dismissed. Ba't yung maintindihan sa page 308? Pero dito yung number 2 R83, level 4, yung pwede yung level natin, secondary number, 8 stated that amusement places which offer the same spectrum of diversion, entertainment, and function like night clubs now include videoke bars, karaoke television, karaoke classes, and music lounges. As such, student vendors, business and operators of said establishment are being also subject to 18% tax under Section 125B of the NIRC of 1997, as amended and now to 12% VAT on gross receipt. Itong yung word bar or restaurant
responsibility corporators or operators of restaurant, refreshment parlor, and other eating business within the premises.
Terms and payments naman ng amusement tax.
Sa tax on gross receipts, sinasabi dito na yung tax on gross receipts is payable sa end of each quarter and responsibility ito ng proprietor, leasing, or operator na gumawa ng complete return of the amount of gross receipts during the preceding quarter and pay tax. Tax on winnings naman, sinasabi dito na yung tax on winnings deducted sa winning ticket or prize with the supervision of person in charge.
Hashtag trending topic. Rates and basis of tax.
The tax is imposed, calculated, and accumulated on every sale, barter, exchange, or other disposition through IPO or initial public offering of shares of stock in closely held corporations. The rates listed below is based on the equivalent of the share of stocks sold, bartered, exchanged, or otherwise disposed to the total outstanding shares of stock after delisting in the local stock exchange in gross selling price or gross value in money. The rate is up to 25%. It will be equivalent to 4%. But if the rate is over 25%, but not over 33 and 1/3%, it will be equivalent to 2%. And lastly, if the rate is over 33 and 1/3%, it's going to be equivalent to 1%.
I have here an example. Company A has 2 million authorized shares and half of it is outstanding shares before it listed its authorized shares. Through IPO, 1 million shares were sold as primary offering and 500,000 were sold as secondary offering. Primary offering is equal to 1 million shares. To get the rate, we must divide the 1 million shares from the primary offering with the total shares of 2 million and multiplied it with 100. The answer is 50%. The primary offering will fall to the 1% bracket according to the rates presented earlier. Secondary offering is equal to 500,000 shares. To get the rate, we must divide the 500,000 shares from the secondary offering with the total shares of 2 million and multiplied it with 100. The answer is 25%. On the other hand, the secondary offering will fall under the 4% bracket according to the rates presented earlier. Corporation or person liable to pay tax. The tax imposed shall be paid by the issuing corporation in primary offering and the seller in secondary offering. Primary shares is a good example of primary offering, and it was the original sale made to the investing public by the applicant company of its own securities. On the other hand, secondary shares is a good example of secondary offering, and it was the sale made to the investing public by the existing shareholders of their securities. Determining of whether a corporation is a closely held. For taxation reasons, A. Closely held corporation is any corporation where the value of the outstanding capital is at least 50% and also at least 50% of the combined voting power of all classes of stock. The shareholders are often members of the same family. There are rules to apply in determining if the corporation is a closely held corporation. 1. Stock not owned by individuals. Stocks should be owned proportionately by its shareholders, partners, or beneficiaries. A shareholder can be a person, institution, or other company. 2. Family and partnership ownerships. Stocks can be owned by individual, by or for his family, or by for his partner. The family of an individual includes only his brothers and sisters, whether by the whole or half-blood, spouse, ancestors, and lineal descendants or the direct descendants of a person, such as children, grandchildren, and so on. 3 options. Any individual has a choice to own a stock. If he already acquire the stocks, he should be considered as the owner of the stocks. Or constructive ownership as actual ownership. Ownership of the stocks really depend on the relationship of the owner with another person. For example, if your spouse owns 100% of the stock, you will be considered as constructive owner of your spouse's stock.
Note:
beginning September 15, 2020, every sale, barter, exchange, or other disposition through IPO of shares of stock in closely held corporations is no longer subject to the percentage tax imposed under Section 1 to 7B upon the Effectivity of Republic Act No. 11,494.
And for the last topic, we have the returns, withholdings, and payments of the taxes. The number one example there is persons liable in time for payment. In general, every business, whether you are exceeding or not within 3 million pesos, you still need to pay your tax every quarterly. Next is persons retiring from business. They need to declare that they will be retiring from business, that they will be subjected to pay their percentage taxes to pay the tax due within 20 days after closing their business. And the next is time for filing of monthly percentage tax return. The return shall filled and the tax paid within 25 days after the end of each taxable quarter.
Uy, pre! Other quarterly return. Kidding aside, no, I'm gonna be explaining the other quarterly returns. You can open your books at page 316. Letter A, on tax, overseas dispatch, message or conversation originating from the Philippines. Pwede dito yung couriers, telco, nandito nanggagaling sa Philippines. So, let's say nagpadala ako ng mail, then may bayad yun. Yung tax na kaakibat doon, dapat pwede na siya mabayaran noong tatanggap internationally. Tax payable din dapat nila. Kung sino man yung magbabayad. For B, amusement taxes. Sinasabi dito, duty daw nung proprietor or operator concerned na mag-file ng tax sa BIR. Tapos due yun within 20 days. So, tax on winnings naman. So, ito, yung operator, manager, o sino man yung namamahala nung horse races, sila dapat yung mag-file ng total amount na taxable. Yung D, tax on sale of shares of stock listed and traded in the local stock exchange. Duty ng stockbroker din is mag-file ng tax. Kaya nakabenta sila ng stocks. And then every Mondays, required silang mag-disclose or mag-declare yung nagkakitaan nila or kinita nila dun sa previous week. So ngayon, example lang, this week, ang kinita ko is $20,000. So, next Monday, dapat babayaran, ma-file ko na siya or ma-disclose, ma-declare sa secretary ng stock exchange. Yun. Dapat 5 banking days. Remember that. Kasi baka lumabas sa quiz.
And for the next topic, we have the determination of correct sales or receipts. To determine correct sales or receipts, it is important to keep accurate records of all transactions and to reconcile those records regularly. This involves comparing the total amount of sales or receipts recorded in your accounting system with the amount of money that was actually collected from customers and deposited in your bank account. You can use a variety of tools to help you with this process, including sales report software and accounting software. You should also have a clear understanding of your business's sales and accounting processes, including any applicable tax laws and regulations, other important considerations for tracking inventory and managing cash flow. It is also important to ensure that all transactions are properly documented and that any discrepancies are identified and resolved quickly. By taking a proactive approach to tracking your sales and receipts, you can minimize the risk of errors and ensure that your business remains compliant with all relevant regulations.
Hey Freddy, matapos!
Matapos! Ayan! Next is withholding of percentage tax. Withholding of percentage tax refers to the practice of deducting a certain percentage of an individual or company's income or payment as tax before it is paid to the recipient. The percentage varies depending on the type of income. With rates ranging from 1 to 15%, the withheld tax is then remitted to the government by the withholding agent on a periodic basis. This practice aims to ensure that taxes are paid on time and that government revenue collections are increased.
Pre! Pre!
Uy, pre!
Ano yung return and payments of percentage taxes with it?
Yun ba? Meron 5 example yan. First is to determine what percentage of tax you are required withhold. This can be found in the IRS website or by consulting a tax professional.
Ganun ba yung pre? Ano yung kasunod?
And next is use an online payment service or software to track the calculate taxes that are withheld from each employee's paycheck.
Umali, ano yung sunod?
Next is to file quarterly and annual reports with the IRS to report the amount of taxes that were withheld from employees' paycheck. These reports are typically filled electronically using tax software.
Oh, ano naman yung next step?
And the next step is make timely payments to the IRS for the amounts that were withheld from employees' paycheck. This can also be done electronically using the IRS Electronic Federal Tax Payment System.
Aba, sige nga, ano yung last?
And the last step is to provide employees with a form at the end of each tax year that summarizes their total earnings and the amounts withheld for taxes. Remember, failing to report and pay payroll taxes can result in penalties and interest charges. It is important to stay up to date and accurate with your payroll tax reporting and payments. And for the next topic, we have the Certificate of Percentage Taxes Withheld, which is a document that reports the amount of federal and state income taxes, social security taxes, and Medicare taxes that were withheld from an employee's paycheck during the year. It must be provided to you by your employer no longer than January 31st of the year following the tax year. The information is important for filing your tax return, as it allows you to report the amount of your taxes you have already paid in the IRS and state tax agencies, as well as you determine if you are entitled to a refund or if you owe additional taxes. Uy! Andiyan ka pa pala! At saka yung next topic natin, it is about substitute percentage tax return. A substitute tax return is a tax return prepared by the Internal Revenue Service on the behalf of taxpayer who did not file a tax return. In general, the IRS uses income and other information that it has a file to prepare the substitute tax return. And for the next topic, we have the substitute official receipt. A substitute official receipt, or SOR, is a document used as a replacement for an official receipt. It is used to customers when an official receipt cannot be provided immediately. SOR contains the same information as an official receipt, but it is not printed with a government-accredited invoice machine. It includes the name of the seller, date of transaction, description of the goods or services, quantity, unit price, amount, and the signature of the seller authorized representative. SOR must be issued by business that are registered with the Bureau of Internal Revenue in compliance with the regulations of the government.
Compliance activities after registration AS. A non-VAT percentage tax. A non-VAT taxpayer subject to percentage tax must 1. Pay the annual registration fee of $500 for every places of business or establishment that generate sales after updating the registration records, including industry code or occupation code. 2. Register the books of account of business, occupation calling before use. 3. Register sales invoices and official receipts as non-VAT invoices for transaction not subject to VAT, and separate sets of VAT invoices, receipts for transaction subject to VAT. 4. File quarterly tax return using Form No. to 551Q on or before the 25th day of taxable return.
Uy, yun ba? Grabe, ang hirap nga yan. Sige uwi na ako Ingat kayo dyan. Grabe guys, ang hirap nga ng ginagawa nila. Buti na lang, di ako kasali dun. Sige na guys, thank you. Like, comment, and subscribe Bye-bye.
Kiss nga kayo. Kiss!
Huwag kang matakot, di mo ba alam nandito lang ako sa iyong tabi, di kita pababayaan kailan sa iyong kamay. Ikaw ang Diyos at Hari ng iyong mundo. Matahos sila sa'yo.